Today, let's talk about a company that, from the outside, looked like it had it all figured out. We're talking healthy products, tons of happy customers, really slick, modern branding. But behind the scenes, it was absolute chaos. The business was basically rotting from the inside out. This is the story of Aarogya Foods, and it's a huge lesson in how the one department you might be ignoring can bring the whole house down.
So meet Aarogya Foods. They're a medium-sized company based in South India. And honestly, they make exactly what people want right now. Healthy, super convenient, ready-to-eat snacks made from millets like ragi and jawar. You could find them in stores, you could buy them online. They were hitting all the right trends. By all accounts, these guys should have been absolutely thriving.
But they weren't thriving. Not even close. Behind that shiny packaging and all the good press, the company was just in a constant state of crisis. I mean, little fires were popping up in every single department, and this really promising business was secretly fighting for its life. The big question is, why? To solve this mystery, the first thing we have to do is listen. We need to listen to the people on the ground, inside the company. We've got to understand the symptoms before we can even think about making a diagnosis.
First, you hear from the production manager, and the picture they paint is one of total chaos on the factory floor. They could never rely on having the raw materials they needed, which meant production lines would just grind to a halt, completely out of the blue. They were missing deadlines left and right and just couldn't operate efficiently.
Okay, next we go over to the finance department, and the numbers are telling a pretty terrifying story. The cost just to buy materials was skyrocketing, but get this, so was the cost to simply store those materials. They were burning cash at both ends, and it was squeezing the company's finances completely dry. And here's where it gets really scary. All that internal chaos, it started leaking out to the public. The marketing manager was seeing a huge spike in customer complaints, specifically about poor packaging. The brand's reputation for quality, which was their single biggest asset, was starting to crack. So let's connect the dots here. What do we got? We've got unreliable suppliers, which leads to crazy price swings, inconsistent quality, and constant delays. This forces the company to stockpile inventory just in case, which then drives up their storage costs and traps a ton of cash that they could be using for, growing the business. It is a classic vicious cycle. Okay, let's dive into this. We've got a whole list of symptoms, but a good doctor knows that they often point to a single underlying disease. So what is the root cause that's connecting all of Aarogya's different problems?
To find our answer, we've got to look at the gold standard for purchasing. It's often called the 5 rights. See, a great purchasing department makes sure the company gets the right material, in the right quantity, at the right time, for the right price, and, so important, of the right quality. It's a really delicate strategic balancing act.
And this, right here, is the core of the problem. Aarogya was stuck in the past, operating with this old-school reactive purchasing model. They were buying in bulk based on old data, just trying to get the cheapest possible price. The goal, where they needed to be, is to be strategic, to be proactive, buying based on future demand, getting lean deliveries, and treating purchasing as a strategic advantage, not just another cost on an expense report. And the financial damage was just so clear. This outdated approach meant procurement costs were climbing because of volatile prices, inventory costs were ballooning because of all that bulk buying, and waste was piling up from poor quality materials. I mean, every single one of these levers was pulling the company's finances downward. And there we have it. The diagnosis is in. All those symptoms we saw, the production stoppages, the financial strain, the customer complaints, they all trace back to one single source: a broken, outdated purchasing department. It wasn't just a problem. It was the heart of the problem, and it was pumping inefficiency through the entire organization. So we have our diagnosis, but what's the cure, right? Let's look at the prescription, the 4-step plan designed to bring Aarogya Foods back to full health.
The prescription is a clear 4-step action plan. And look, it's not about just fixing one little thing. It's about completely transforming their whole approach to purchasing. They need to get way smarter about who they buy from, how they work with them, how they manage inventory, and the tools they use to do it all.
All right, step 1 is all about making data-driven decisions. So instead of just chasing the lowest price, they started using a supplier scorecard. Look at supplier A. Sure, they're cheap, but their quality and reliability, they're terrible. Supplier C offers the best quality, but it's way too expensive. But supplier B, that's the strategic choice. They offer a great balance of good quality, a fair price, and high reliability. It's all about finding the best value, not just the lowest cost. Step 2 builds directly on that.
Once you find your supplier Bs, you don't just place one-off orders with them. No, you forge strategic partnerships. And that means creating long-term contracts that lock in prices, which protects the company from market swings and guarantees you're getting a consistent supply of high-quality stuff.
Now, with those reliable partners locked in, they could finally move to step 3, lean inventory. They ditched that old bulk purchasing model for what's called a just-in-time approach. That's where materials arrive exactly when they're needed for production. And the impact was massive. Storage costs basically disappeared, cash was freed up, and the risk of materials spoiling or going bad just vanished.
And finally, step 4. You've got to support this new strategy with modern tools and processes. That means implementing e-procurement systems for transparency, centralizing all the purchasing to get better deals through volume, and holding regular supplier reviews to make sure your partners are always getting better. This is how you build a system that's truly resilient.
And here is the single most important lesson in this whole story. For years, Aarogya Foods have been treating purchasing like some boring administrative task, just a cost center designed to spend money. They learned the hard way that purchasing is actually an incredibly powerful strategic lever. When you pull it correctly, it drives efficiency, it guarantees quality, and it creates a massive competitive advantage.
Aarogya's story is a powerful reminder, isn't it? It shows that sometimes the most overlooked department in a company can hold the keys to either incredible success or total failure. They were able to turn everything around by fundamentally changing how they thought about buying things, which, leaves us with one final question to think about. Is your organization leveraging its purchasing power, or is it being held back by it?